What's up, everyone out there in YouTube land? It's me, Perry Lovewhistle, and I'm back on Akkadian in Project Quarm. And after the last few videos, you're probably asking yourself a couple of questions. Is this video actually going to include a completable quest? Did he ever grind out higher level in his alteration so he doesn't fizzle away when he's trying to port? And did he actually fix his microphone? And the answer to all three questions is yes. First of all, I have to apologize for the bad audio quality in the last two videos. I thought that it was due to a chest cold, but my chest cold went away and the audio quality stayed bad. So I swapped to a new microphone. Also, the quest I'm going to do today is the Thex Dagger quest, which is a triple threat. It's a useful range slot item. It's also a legacy item, so I've only got a month or so to get it. And it includes a lot of really obscure EverQuest lore. And you might be wondering why I'm going to Faydwer to start the Thex Dagger quest. The most straightforward method is just to go straight to Highkeep, because the majority of the quest, the practical parts of the quest, are just passing items around in Highkeep and then coming to Faydwer to do the turn-in. But I'm a big fan of trying to figure out why I'm going places and talking to people, and why I'm looking for Princess Linnea Thex. So I'm coming to Faydwer to try and figure that out. And by the way, if anyone knows why or how this quest was supposed to start, please leave any comments that might help in the comment section below, because I still have no idea how you're supposed to naturally start looking for Princess Linnea Thex. But once you do enough looking around, you come across a couple of pieces of kind of obscure lore. First of all, the Paladins of Faydwer, the High Elf Paladins, are a group called the Silent Watch, which I found very few references to, and one of them is in a quest for a Silent Watch shield, which is a difficult to do quest for a shield that is really not that great. But over the course of it, General Jaileel here will talk about how the Silent Watch does the dirty work for the royal family of Faydwer. There's even a Dark Elf quest where they reference how scary the Silent Watch is. So basically, your fancy High Elves here sort of have their own KGB. Tinkale here will send you on a quest, if you have high enough faction with him, to slay a named kobold in Inathul Swamp. It's Jojungua, and he spawns in the northeast corner of Inathul Swamp next to a tower with a bunch of undead in it. Now, granted, I didn't spend very long trying to get him to spawn, but still didn't succeed. And when you come up and bring the pelt back to Tinkale, he gives you not an item, but information. He tells you about a contact that you're supposed to meet in the nearby inn, and a secret phrase that you use when you talk to him to send you on the next part of the quest. So since I could not succeed at getting the named kobold to spawn, I am just going to pretend that I got that information from Tinkale here and not from the Wikipedia article. And if you come over to the Faydwer Inn called Traveler's Home, you can notice initially all of these rooms are empty. But if you ask the innkeeper about your secret contact, he says that he's on the second floor, the last door on the right. And here is Mr. Tolan Nurbite, and if you tell him the secret phrase, "The glory of the mother shines bright," he says, "So you're the slayer of Jojungua." Yep, that's me, definitely did that. And references himself as a member of the Silent Watch, who does the dirty work for King Tiras Thex. No one knows of us. He says, "Do you accept this mission or do I have to kill you?" And by the way, if you respond with "I wish to leave," he will attack you. And if you say "I accept the mission," he sends you on the quest for the Silent Watch shield. I'm not doing that. If you instead ask him about Princess Linnea Thex, which again, I have no idea how I'm supposed to know that I'm supposed to ask this, he talks about how she has been missing for a while. He sent Tiran to Tunaria to search for her, but he has not reported back yet. If you wish to help, you'd better prove yourself worthy first. And I believe you should talk to Tinkale. And I think that this is sort of how this is supposed to start, but I have no idea how I'm supposed to know to spawn Tolan so that he sends me to Tinkale, who will send me to kill the kobold, who will then send me back to Tolan to start this quest. And by the way, the rest of the Silent Watch Shield quest does involve saving Princess Linnea Thex from somewhere else, but it's a completely different location and a completely different way of saving her. Anyhow, I know that I need to go to Tuneria and search for Tiron. So before we leave Felwith for the first time, there's a couple of things that I want to cover really quick. First of all, you can't do this quest unless the clerics really like you. You need your cleric faction to be kindly. Initially, my cleric faction was apprehensive, which means they very much didn't like me. Not so much hated me, but I couldn't have done the quest. But it was fixable just by force-feeding a dwarf in Freeport a bunch of muffins. It's a very common faction quest that's done that I was going to spend a lot of time talking about, but anybody who plays EverQuest enough to get value out of these videos is probably familiar with giving Pandos muffins. So I saved you guys a montage of me feeding Pandos muffins. Another thing I want to talk about is this character, Princess Linnea Thex, and the high elf royal family of Thex, because the name Thex comes up in a lot of quests in EverQuest. They're not always related to the high elves. Thex is also the last name of the dark elf royalty. The first dark elves were members of the high elf royal family that were tortured by the Prince of Hate until they became dark elves. So there's always a relation between the dark elves and the high elves in EverQuest. But also, I've been all over the elven city of Felwith, and I can't find any sort of a throne room or royal family or anything like that, like you get in like the Dwarven city, or even all the cities in the Valios expansion, or in a lot of other cities for that matter. You can eventually dig deep enough and find evidence that there is a king of Felwith, and that king has a daughter, Linnea Thex, not to be confused, by the way, with Firiona Vi, who is a sort of surrogate daughter to the royal family, and ends up outshining Linnea Thex in everything when it comes to EverQuest. Those NPCs don't actually exist, and that's probably part of the reason why it's difficult to find any information on them in just talking to NPCs. After digging enough, I know that I need to go to Tuneria, which is the original name of Antonica. The elves, by the way, used to rule Antonica, and then they were pushed out into Faydwer, and some of them still refer to it as Tuneria. But somewhere on Antonica is Tiron, who is looking for Princess Linnea Thex. And while meandering through Antonica looking for the princess, it is inevitable that you will find yourself in High Pass Hold, the casino and bank in the only pass across the Serpent Spine Mountains in the middle of the continent. And right inside, here is a Tiron Blenix. And if you ask him about the princess, he says that she was kidnapped by Carson McCabe, and he is awaiting a paladin from Felwith. And I have no idea how to get from this step to the next one naturally. Tiron says he's waiting for a paladin from Felwith, and I tried everything I could think of to claim to be that paladin, from claiming to be the paladin to using the same phrase that I used with Tolan, just a whole bunch of other stuff referencing the Silent Watch. It might be a missing dialogue situation, or maybe I just am not creative enough to come up with it. But you tell him, I will become a hero, and he gives you Tiron's bracer, and tells you to find Princess Linnea and give her the bracer to prove that I am with the Kawada doll. And this part is tricky for me because I very rarely go upstairs. But all the way up on the 4th floor, there are 2 secret walls. You walk through this painting or the end of this wall here, and it takes you into this back room area, where you find Princess Linia and Tyrana Slill, who is a dark elf who cons indifferent to me. Give her Tyrann's bracer, and she says, "Ah, you're a member of the Silent Watch." Oh, and when you hail her, she says, "Are you a little short to be a high-pass guard?" Nice little Star Wars reference. But you give her the bracer, she recognizes that I'm a member of the Silent Watch, and gives a slightly different Tyrann's bracer back. And I take this one back down to the front. Now this part is apparently tricky, according to the Wikipedia article. Apparently, when I give Tyrann's his bracer back, he gives me an amulet to give to Linia, and then another version of Linia spawns right here. Royal Amulet of Thex. So when I gave him the bracer, King Tyrus Thex thanks you. Could you please hand the princess this amulet? I pried it from the hands of some beggar. Obviously, there's a little bit more lore there. And then she gets the royal amulet, and she is going to be continuing on to Kanos. Interesting, because that's actually where she gets nabbed again, is on her way to Kanos. That's the Silent Watch shield quest, is saving her from having been kidnapped by dark elves on that trip. But I'm supposed to take this letter as proof that I have rescued her. If you cannot find my father, search for Tolan Nurbite. He is usually at the Traveler's Inn. Okay, so now back to Feydark. I also want to point out to any other casters that find themselves traveling a lot, there is always somebody who has just moved a newbie or low-level alt to a new area and is looking for a bind. Binding only takes a few seconds and very little mana. I want to encourage other casters to pass out binds so that other people can get right back to gaming as quickly as possible. Little acts of kindness like that go a long way in a community-driven game like EverQuest. But back in the High Elf City, spawn Mr. Tolan again, and give him the letter from Princess Linia, and get your very own Thex Dagger. It is a lore item, so it can be traded and will eventually become very expensive. But this 50 save disease is kind of a big deal. There's not a lot of disease resist stuff in the early game, and much less plus 50. So this is going to go a long way early on, keeping me from getting rabies, and later it's going to be really good when I do sky raids. So this is going to be my range slot item, I think, for quite a while. And a big thank you to Sora, our guild leader, for reminding me of this quest. I almost let that one slip through the cracks, and I would have had to live the rest of this server without a Thex Dagger. Now I've got to get back to grinding as usual, so until next time, bye!